British, that's it, they work. Right. Oh, Bennett, this echoes. Let's try. Right, good evening to the meeting of the Westley Heights Area Committee. I could read you out the long gobbledygook, but you know what this is about. If there's a fire, go straight out to the courtyard. You know the meeting's recorded. Keep your phones quiet. There's no members of the public. That's the way it should be read. Right, so we'll go through the order of business. Apologies for absent none. Declarations of interest. Anyone got a declaration of interest? Apart from myself being an member of Essex County Council. Confirmation of the minutes of the 5th of March, Westley Heights Area Committee. Everyone happy with those minutes? Yep, everyone's happy. Now we've got a presentation from Morgan Sindall, so you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Good evening. My name's Martin Byrne. I'm the Interim Regional Director for Morgan Sindall Property Services. I've joined working with the Basildon Council in April of this year because we had a change in senior leadership, and since I've taken on the role full time. With me I have Helen. I'll let Helen.
Good evening, my name's Helen Sheen and I'm Head of Social Value for Morgan Sindall Property Services. Lucas?
Good evening, my name is Lucas Borkowski. I'm a Senior Partnership Manager.
Brilliant. What we'll do is we've got a presentation that we're going to share and go through. There's a section for questions at the end because there isn't too many people. If you've got any questions in between or during the slides, feel free to ask. So I'm just starting. Yeah, there's a bit. I think there might be a bit of delay. Okay. So today we are going to go over an overall service snapshot for our business, the area of repairs snapshot, so specifically to the Westley Heights area, some detail around improving our service, how we support the community, and a section at the end for questions. Sorry, it's very slow.
Must be Windows.
Okay, so this is a repair service snapshot for a whole repair service. This doesn't include gas or voids or anything else. To keep it relevant, we've kept it from July 2024 to the end of June 2025. So during that period, we completed 34,000 repairs. Within our KPIs, we are measured on appointments for first fix, which was 85%. Our customer satisfaction rating for again, this is the whole service, was 82%. We took 72,608 telephone calls. During the period from July to June 25, our call waiting time reduced from 7 minutes to an average of 5, and our call answered percentage went from 79% to 86%. What we've done is we've also split it down per area, so within Langdon Hills and Nethermain, which is later in the presentation to make it a bit more specific to yourself. So this is our complaints benchmark using the English Housing Survey of 2024. So currently within Basildon, we're running at 6.5%. There's a section a little bit further that Lucas is going to go into a bit more detail. Nationwide against the survey, the average is 7%, and within London it's 9%. So we're just below average, but there is a little bit of work that we want to do in context that we want to provide around that. So I'm going to pass over to Lucas, who's going to discuss a few of the slides.
Yes, so Basildon drop-in sessions, fantastic initiative, actually aimed at enabling access to our services to as wide group of Basildon residents as possible. That was born in close cooperation with Councillor Smith, who was instrumental to it. So far, we delivered in excess of 39 sessions. On the back of that, we raised over 650 repairs, out of which 507 were completed to date. Let me just go back to that previous slide for a second. Those sessions are taking place every Thursday, every week, between hours 9 and 3 p.m, and they're taking place downstairs in the bus centre. So now going to the numbers for Westley Heights service. Again, this is for the period between July 24 and June 25. Within that period, we completed 1,869 repairs. Our first-time fixed rate was 84%, and customer satisfaction 84% as well. Appointment caps were ranging around that 91% mark. Because Westley Heights is built from sort of two independent areas, so Langdon Hills, for that area we covered 488 repairs with a first-time fix of 85% and customer satisfaction rate of 82%. Appointment kept, again, very high, 89%. So Navmate, again for the same period, 1,381 repairs completed, out of which 84% was delivered as a first-time fix. Customer satisfaction rate 85%, and 91% of those appointments were kept in the time slot. So Westley Heights in general, this is the snapshot of the total number of repairs completed and number of complaints we received within that period between July 24 and June 25, 122 complaints. This doesn't mean that this is 122 live complaints. This is the volume of total complaints we received. Those complaints, to put it in prospect of, how many properties generated them. So 122 was generated by 66 properties within Westley Heights area.
Thank you. So moving on to improving our service, I think, as I said, when I joined and started looking into the contract a lot further, improving resident communication is quite a broad subject, but what we need to make sure is we've got accessibility via telephone, so people can have done a lot of work on our telephone call centre. So we've currently got 9 employees, and we've got 4 people on cover part-time to cover busy areas, so we run a lot of data to find out when's the busy period of our calls. Obviously, the drop-in centre is also a bit of a channel shift and give people the availability that they can have a face-to-face discussion if they do wish so. We've got our resident portal open and available for people that want to report repairs, maybe not via the telephone. And then also improvement with communications with regards to our text messaging services that goes out to residents to make sure that it is working and it is accurate, whilst also our customer satisfaction surveys at the end. Due to obviously recent laws and regulations, complaints and disrepair processes have kind of come to the forefront. So we've split our delivery teams to make sure we've got individual people managing complaints and the disrepair process with relevant managers and not just administrative work. We're also working very hard on our appointment completion times, around from when we pick the phone up to when we can offer an appointment at first point of contact, and if not, if we were to pass the job to one of our schedulers or planners, ensuring there's deadlines and timelines, and the whole time the resident is kept informed. I'm just going to pass over to Helen, who's going to discuss our social value. Apologies, there's a bit of a lag. There we go.
Thank you, Martin. Good evening. I'm just going to touch on some of our social value activity that we completed in the year 24-25. As you can see on the PowerPoint slide, the first line details the social value that we created in 2024/25. That is approximately £11.5 million. The previous year it was about £7.5 million. So during 24-25 we've increased it by £4 million. And that is actual social value that has been externally verified by the social value portal. We have our social value annually verified. And how the social value portal works is our social value activity is aligned to a number of different sections that have proxies. The proxies are created by the Social Value Portal, and they look at data such as the Office of National Statistics, the Treasury Green Book, and also the NHS, as well as the Department for Work and Pensions. And so by using this model, we can ensure that our social value is robust and transparent, and really gives a good indication of how we're performing with regards to our activity in the borough. So some of these areas that we have used to create that social value is our schools and college engagement. That's really important. Social mobility is one of our social value pillars. Clearly supporting young people in Basildon to understand their career aspirations, and also about working in our sector and beyond, are vitally important. So we engage with 5 schools, including Woodlands, De La Salle, Bromford, Beauchamps and Billericay School, and 342 students were engaged with at those schools and colleges, and we did things such as mock interviews, career fairs and STEM activities with them. Employability activity, this is absolutely crucial to support Basildon residents into work. 326 unemployed people were supported with our work at the Job Centre and Pathways. 216 hours were spent on employability support. 10 residents were supported back into employment, and we created roles for 4 apprentices on our contract in gas, plumbing and carpentry trades. Volunteering and donations, this is something that we're really keen to support, especially those grassroots organisations in Basildon. During the period, we donated over £16,000 to charity. 8,000 worth was ring doorbells to support the council's domestic awareness campaign. Over £7,000 donated to the Alzheimer's Society, Changing Pathways and St Luke's Hospice. We donated over £600 in appliances and hampers, and 220 hours were spent on volunteering at the Hope Community Supermarket and Leighton Community Centre. So what have we been up to this year? So our latest apprenticeship academy finished last week. We received over 300 applications and we have recruited 8 apprentices. We are looking at further opportunities within our supply chain. As you can see, we received a huge amount of applications. Those applications that we were unable to take forward to our apprenticeship academy, we are supporting as well, so with work experience, job skills and CV support. The Apprenticeship Academy is held locally in Basildon, so it's very inclusive for Basildon residents. It's a 5-day programme of work experience knowledge, CV support, job search. Every applicant leaves with 2 accredited qualifications in health and safety and customer service. And at the end of the week, the applicants then are interviewed for whichever of the apprenticeship vacancies they would like. A fantastic opportunity for Basildon younger residents to engage with us. Secondly, our Crunch initiative and Space Invaders. So I'm pleased to say that the first one is happening tomorrow at Craylands and Butneys. Property Services will be supporting with 16 volunteers. We will be supplying skips for residents to dispose of their bulky waste to prevent it being fly tipped on the streets of Basildon, and we've been collaborating with our colleagues in the Environmental Services team. We're also looking at a project called Space Invaders. This is something that we've looked at bringing solely to Basildon. And Space Invaders is going to be a project where we repurpose those small pockets of land that unloved, maybe fly tipped. We want to bring them back into community use. So we will be looking at removing fly tipping, maybe fencing the area, planting it out, putting some seating on it so that it becomes something that the community can use once again. And finally, our career advice, really important to make sure that Basildon residents are in work. We know that that's really good for their well-being and mental health, and it's very good as well for the economy of Basildon. To my knowledge, we are the only organisation that is attending Pathways weekly to offer CV support and advice to Basildon residents, and we will continue to do that because we understand that it's something that's really needed in Basildon, and it's good for not only Basildon residents but for the economy of Basildon as well.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from anyone?
I'll just start off by this disrepair business. Oh, your mic's still on. So when we came into power last year, this council was getting its back end slapped very hard by these ambulance chasers, solicitors who can't get any more legal aid work because the previous government, quite understandably, has scrolled back on the remit of legal aid. And these parasitic ambulance chasing lawyers have been going after councils. So when I was having the housing brief last year, I said to them, right, let's get some proper legal people in, because they're only pound shop solicitors. We've got some good barristers in, we're fighting these disrepair claims. And the thing is, when you get a reputation as a council, which we had for being soft on disrepair, you just become seen as a sucker, and you get the other ambulance chasers trying it on. It's money from tenants, lining the pockets of people, doing something lawful but not in the interest of the taxpayer. And their so-called clients think they're in for a big windfall after their deductions. They might be able to afford a small shopping trip at Lakeside at best. While that ambulance chasing solicitor has had a very good whack out of it, so that's changing a bit. I do have one. The members of Langdon Hills will be quite familiar with this. The Langdon Hills estate. We get, when there's repairs, because of the stupid design done in the 70s, when local authorities thought, do we build houses, regular walls, nice pitch roofs, nice and flat, easy to maintain? But back then you had trendy architecture, and we're now having to deal with the problem of trendy architects with bad ideas. So when something plays up on that estate, it's not easy to fix. One of the worst things you can have on the estate, if there's a blocked up pipe, raw human sewage coming into their washing machine, at their sinks, you know, it's really disgusting. And we got, what are we going to do to be really on top of that fault? And one other thing, I'll be careful what I say because it's obviously privacy, but an elderly couple on that estate with a disabled child in their house, who's an adult, they have had no washing facilities because their shower's broken. Morgan Sindel sent someone round, yup, it needs this. Then another guy came down saying, it's not a plumber's job, it's an electrician's job. They was due to start the week, they got cancelled, so I've had to have a word with someone here and it has been put on, but people shouldn't have to be approaching councillors, not that we mind, but someone in a call centre shouldn't be playing God. You know, for an elderly couple with an adult disabled child, they need their access to their washroom, especially in this hot weather, just to cool down. And these are the things. I mean, the Langdon Hills estate has a number of issues.
Thank you very much. So to answer, there's two parts to the question, I suppose. The knowledge of Langdon Hills and the design of buildings, unfortunately, isn't anything new, but it's something that we need to kind of cultivate and build over time. So what we have done, I've worked specifically with the plan team to try and look at repair demand and plan programs and how we can overlay such information. So there's 20 estates within there, looking at things like kitchens, windows, you know, envelope work, external works. If we know specifically there are a problem with things like drainage facilities, etc., we can start looking at introducing PPM or planned preventative maintenance schemes. So, for example, jetting the stack. So we've got a number of other estates and other parts of the business that's just the design of the estate. There's not a building solution as such. It's just how the building is built. But what we can do is probably try and be a bit more proactive, and i.e. make sure that we've got a programme where we're jetting the stacks and we've got access and making sure it's cleared to almost prevent the blockage in the first place. It's also quite interesting to figure out why there is a blockage. So is the blockage, are people pouring things down the drain that they shouldn't have to? Is there anything that we can do there to maybe introduce something in the area to reduce the need to pour oil down the drain, for argument's sake? So I'll take that away for Langdon Hills, and I will work with Lucas personally and then have a look and see what comes up, especially around drainage. like I said, we are working with our plan teams around envelope work, windows, doors, etc. So there is a model already in place that provides us this bit of information that we pass on. In regards to your elderly resident, I apologise. It's not acceptable at all. We are working very hard to control our WIP, to make sure not just that we've booked a job, to make sure the job happens, to make sure the right people at the right time. Unfortunately, sometimes we do make mistakes, but we always try to learn from them. We've gone through a large process to make sure we've got a lot of people from the business supporting Basildon currently, to make sure we're learning from our mistakes. So I do apologise. Obviously, you've got the relationships with the people. You can always reach out if there are any issues or anything like that, and we can make sure that we can attend and complete as quickly as possible. I don't know if you've got anything to add on that, Lucas.
No. So you covered the topic well. Obviously, as you mentioned, Councillor Smith, that all those buildings being built around the same sort of time, and they all probably run into those defects pretty much at the same time. So we understand that there might be a number of those that we need to address. In addition to that, obviously, if we're talking about the stack in a multi-story building where multiple flats are affected, unfortunately, it's not an easy fix, and sometimes it is time-consuming because you need to coordinate those works with all the residents affected.
The problems that I've found in the last year is a palliative care patient had effluent coming up from the toilet and through the shower. 4 times I made this complaint, 4 times, and they were told that it was a blockage and were accusing them of putting stuff down the toilet, but it wasn't them, it was to do with the connection. The second thing is pipes in the garages leaking. I've recently made a complaint about this around number pipes in the garage is leaking, overflows leaking, and running for months, and nothing was done about it. But when I walked around the back of this garage, there it was, coming straight out. And leaking verandas. I've gone into a number of houses where the veranda upstairs is leaking down into the kitchen, and they report it and report it and report it, and they come along and put a bit of mastic in it, and it's never really fixed. And finally, I feel, as a councillor, we should have access to an emergency number during the weekend for things that actually need seeing to. So that would be nice. But apart from that, I haven't got anything else to add.
Lucas, would you be able to do an email directly to Councillor Robbins and Councillor Robbins reply back to you?
Yes, I'm more than happy to share our out-of-hours number with you, Councillor.
Yeah, it's just
I would like to add to that as well that I'm personally on duty every single day to take the calls, just in case if my supervisor or any of the engineers won't receive that call.
okay.
Just to, sorry,
Great, thank you very much.
just to add, we've got the same number during the day as the same number in the evening, and it's not just Lucas answering the phone. We have a call centre, and there's an escalation route within the call centre for a number of people that are on call at any point. So if there is an issue, if we need to provide a contact centre with details of who people are, and if there is an emergency and people would like to talk, that's the route to get hold of us.
Councillor Larkin.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd just like to say I have some sort of sympathy with you, because I've been around since time immemorial, and that estate has always been a problem. There's always been a problem with the heating, everything. It won a design years ago. I don't know why. They must have been absolutely blind, because I can't see that the design fault is actually in all the buildings, because it was designed wrong. I mean, this heating system in there, it's absolute disgrace. You know, every house should have their own. It never worked. And I believe that, and till we resolve this, there's always going to be problems with it, always. And I'd just like to say the 122 complaints that you got, was it mostly from there?
So I'll add a bit on the 122 complaints. Just to be clear, we don't raise the complaints. The complaints like disrepair are raised by Basildon and passed over to us. There is a process in place. Those 122, I think Lucas mentioned, were against 66 people. So we've got repeated complaints, and that was raised, not all open, I might add, but we've got repeated complaints that are raised at the same property multiple times. So we can have a stage one, we can then have a council inquiry, we can then have another council inquiry, we can then have a stage two. And they're all the same complaint, but it kind of conflates the numbers. I've got the details, and I'm happy to share it with you, of those 122. There are some higher users, so you will find, like with most things, you know, the top 10 probably represent over 30% of that number. And there is an issue. It might be the same issue because of the way that complaints are logged within the council, but we can definitely share that list with you.
Thank you. I'll be happy to have that. Thank you, Martin.
No worries. Thank you, Councillor Larkin.
Eddie, are you okay, or do I need to call 999 because your hand's not gone up yet?
Good evening. Very quickly, I don't know if you can give me this information, or I have to go to our councillors, is how many actual physical houses there are against the number of complaints. Obviously, if you've got 1 million houses and you've got 1,381 problems, it's not very many. If there's 1,200 houses and you've got 1,381, it's a lot more serious matter. Would you happen to have those figures, or would I have to go to somebody else?
I'll take a bet of you, Councillor Murphy. Cigarette box maths, around 1,000.
So we are getting more than one complaint on average per house or dwelling. Well, if there's 1,381 complaints there and 1,868 complaints.
No,
There's
sorry.
122 complaints in the Westley
Not
Heights.
complaints, sorry. Problems raised.
Yes, repairs
Repairs
completed.
raised, yeah, sorry.
Yes. So, thank you, Councillor Murphy. We do have all of that detail. We look at the higher usage properties. So for example, this is a contractor's price per property was built off of attending on average, 3 to 4 repairs per property per year. There has been a definite industry switch, not just here, where that number, if you were to look at how many properties have reported over 3 repairs over a 12-month period, it would be a lot of the stock. So we do have the highest number usage of the properties, and it's not always a building solution that's the problem. There can be external factors. We do have all this information available. We utilise a lot of data analytics and Power BI, and we give access to certain members of Basildon Council so they can see our data. But it's definitely, we do ad hoc data analysis like the estates, the planned versus repairs. We can definitely provide that information and break it down. So, for example, for this meeting, I liaised with a lady in Basildon Council to get the property list for Nevermain and Wesley Hills to make it a bit more specific rather than just talking about the whole borough. It is possible.
And the other thing I had here was already touched on. I've got priority. How do you establish the priority? Because obviously if we are starting to deal with raw sewage, for example, it's got to go to the top of the list against a cracked window, we say, which can probably go to the bottom of the list. And is your call centre trained to get this information out of people? If you've got somebody who's vulnerable, somebody who's old, certain elderly people, for example, I don't want to make a fuss. But however, they have a serious problem. Their front door's broken and it's open, and therefore they can't be secure. How do you deal on this and prioritise this? And would your men be pulled from one thing, even though you're letting down another customer, to allow somebody to go to somewhere else because you consider it an extremely high priority?
Thank you. So within the contract defines two priorities essentially. It defines an emergency priority or a routine or at residence convenience priority. The definition of an emergency priority is set out within the contract documents, which was obviously a while ago, but also we utilised the Basildon's handbook, and they're online because he's recently revised your resident handbook, which gives you a list. So essentially it is at risk of, you know, fire, flood, danger, or the property's at risk. We do have a training session, so currently our head of customer journey is training all of the contact centres, so all these, we've got 9 people in the contact centre, and it's not always about how the resident is portraying the repair, but what the repair is. So some, like you said, sometimes people will be like, oh, my front door's broken and I can't lock it, but it's not a problem. And it's like, no, that's an emergency. What we do know for sure is since COVID, there's been a definite switch in the industry of the amount of emergencies raised. You know, we've gone up from 10% to 25%. As such, recently, Lucas and I worked together, and we know how many emergencies we're roughly going to get a day. We probably know where they are each day. We probably know what they are each day. We've developed a specific team operationally just to deal with those emergencies, to soak up the work. They're not particularly productive, if you like, but we want to make sure we're not taking people off of jobs to go to another job, which ultimately we're then letting someone else down. So within our emergency KPI is to attend within 2 hours, and it's very challenging in the landscape, but there's been definite improvement which has been recognised by the people that manage our contracts. And what we do is we don't rest on our laurels. We're trying to look at it and make sure, because, you know, we want to get to 100%. We want to get to people within an hour. It can be quite difficult, especially it's how the jobs queue. And, you know, we definitely know that 10 o'clock in the morning is busier than 1 p.m, for example, and if you get 10 emergencies. So it's a constant training, and that goes from in hours to out of hours, because out of hours is an emergency only service. So there's a constant training with the contact centre and the planners.
So we'll make sure that team is fully trained to triage those jobs accurately, and they're using quite advanced script as well to identify those jobs and allocate them correctly. As Martin said, you know, emergencies, the way they come through the day is not linear. So it might be times where you're not going to get any phone call, any emergency call, and 5 minutes later suddenly you're going to get 10. So we need to make sure that obviously we are prepared for that, and we've got the staff ready there to action.
Thank you.
I thought he was going to ask another question. If he was going to turn this into a scrutiny committee, if he was going to turn this into a scrutiny committee, I'll do what one particular scrutiny committee chairman does, and we're only on page 2. And there's lots of commas and full stops we can discuss in great length before we get to page 3 and so forth and so forth. I shan't talk to people with that. Right, so here's a question for you. People on the Langdon Hills estate can't get Virgin Media because of the trendy idea the estate was built, because the cables would have to be put underground, literally under the properties. And Virgin Media won't pay the training for their staff to install Virgin Media. You talk about community engagement. There's people there with broadband really, really slow. I mean, one guy said to me that they have to ration it so one kid can do his homework. He's under the cost to hurry up and get it done so his sister can use the internet. I mean, this is something like from 20 years ago with broadband on that estate. I mean, dial-up on that estate. Is there something Morgan Sindall can do to reach out to Virgin Media so Virgin Media can be installed on that estate, so people can have modern broadband? So many people work from home, and it's not just that. Where we live distant lives, an elderly person could be living there and their family's many, many miles away. They couldn't set up some sort of thing on a tablet. It'd be pointless buying on a tablet because the internet on that estate wouldn't be powerful enough. So is this, you talk about community engagement, is there something Morgan Sindall can take away from this meeting? Talk to Virgin Media or Sky, but preferably Virgin, to deal with this bit of red tape so they can fit Virgin Media on the estate so people there can live in the modern age.
Yes, certainly. I mean, I'm more than happy to look into that if you could supply me some more details. Obviously, having access to data to ensure that you're able to do your homework, you're able to work from home, and elderly and vulnerable people are able to stay connected to others in their community is vitally important. And certainly that's something that we would definitely support. So I am more than happy to look into that on those residents' behalf, if you could furnish me the details.
If you drop me an email, I'll be very happy to give you the location and put you in touch with Gillian Blake, the chair of the Residents Association. But I was talking to one parent on their front drive, and their adult kid was on there saying, all the people know which estate you live on, because when their friends at school talk about Netflix, they're like, what's that? Because they can't get it on the estate.
Well, I would imagine that Virgin Media will have a social value department as well. All big organisations have social value parts of their business nowadays. So absolutely, I think we need to reach out to them and ask them, you know, what they're going to do about it, because it's certainly putting the residents in that area at a significant disadvantage.
Well, one way to avoid annoying emails, move there, because you won't have the internet to read them, let alone it coming in your inbox. Now, there was one thing I done when I was chair of cabinet member for housing, and it should have started this financial year, was the improvements to flats in Kingswood. So this year would have been around the shops at Clayle Road, because they've got outside bins that people are dumping their rubbish on, where it was outdoor lockable bins and a lick of paint and refurbished the stairs. And the other part was the flats on Clayle Road and Wichards. I went there with Jonathan Tizard and a gentleman called Gary. Well, us members for Nevermain have not had an update yet on when these works will start. I appreciate you've got a right to the leaseholders, but we'd like some indication of when this is going to happen, because it should have happened in post-May 21. We lost control, and Burlick Bertie, as he's colloquially known as, my predecessor, what did he do with the money? Some metal railings at Felmore's, some CCTV on Felmore's for Tesco's, which they should have paid for out of a 1 or 6 agreement, and I think a park bench in Langdon.
I'll drop you an email if you can, again, just provide me a bit more information. I can definitely follow up with our team. It's not anything on my radar or the repairs, so it's presumably part of the plans.
Works,
yeah, we can get back to you if that's okay.
Perfect, I should look out for that email. One last thing, it's the Lee Chapel South estate, so if you look on your Google map, the Nares, and all the streets that come off it, but you can take off the Castlemaine part, which is Gainsford, Patellas, Sporhams and Fletchers, Edgecotts and Leasings, which were all built privately. But you know those flats where they're one up, one down, with a communal corridor? Most of them have still got the original overhead ceiling lights. They're not LED. So they're paying their leasehold fees or rents to someone going round the Lee Chapel South estate and looking at these flats. There's pretty much one in each, at least one in each street. I can think of a few in every one of the main streets there, where you've got that little, you know, where there's 2 flats and there's a communal walkway. I looked at one in Lee Walk last week. The lady complained the light wasn't working. And those old-fashioned sort of, they're longish and they're sort of like industrial looking. And I'm looking at the bulb and I went, that's not even LED. So it's costing the council money in the electric, and it's costing money when you guys have to keep coming out and changing the light bulb, when an LED unit is just such a no-brainer. So could I have an assurance today that someone will zip round Lee Chapel South, that's all the streets off the Nares, excluding the Castlemaine estate, find these flats and just do an inspection. Do they need to be upgraded, yes or no? So I think that's a win-win. The lights are nice and safe now, but in a few weeks' time, it starts getting dark of an evening, yada, yada, yada.
Yes, we can definitely attend and carry out a review. We'd probably have to do a Lux review of the lighting to make sure it's adequate. The LEDs, obviously it would be an upgrade to the lighting system. So again, when I email you, councillor, about the previous issue that we had around improvements to flats at Kingswood, if you wouldn't mind just listing those addresses again, unless Lucas, you got all of the detail. But we could definitely go around and provide an update and a bit of a plan.
Right, as we're finished on your item, thank you for coming along tonight. You're very welcome to carry on and stay, but if you want to go home and have your dinner, I quite understand. Thank you. Just allow them to make their way. Right. Luckily, it's not a scrutiny committee because we're on page 11. Otherwise, we'd all be stuck on the other pages. So it's matters for consideration for funding. Item 1 is a no-brainer. We either have a Pride team or we don't. Right, so some tough negotiations this week with James Hendry about the Van Gill Drive estate, because those lowlifes at County Hall take our money. They refuse to weed spray. They should have done it in the spring. But poor old Malden, poor old Chelmsford, poor old Epping, what we're doing weed spraying was sent there. Right? So the Pride team done a good job. It's not our area, 5 Links. Then they come to the Langdon Hills estate because the county never sprayed the weeds. You go around Van Gill Drive and we have a promise from county that they'll come round the end of July and allegedly spray. Well, experience it tells you when it comes to them sort of promises, they break them every single year. Every single year. So I've had a robust conversation in never such a nice way with James to say, we will approve that 38 grand, but once that's approved, the Pride team's going round Van Gill Drive, they're going to spray the weeds, make the place look tidy, because I said, how can we do enforcement and say to people, you shouldn't put that rubbish out early, you shouldn't dump that mattress, you shouldn't leave your dead cat in the middle of the road, when the highways look disgusting because of the weeds. It's not our fault. We're fettered to a corpse at County Hall that treat us like a second-class citizen, even though we're a net contributor to them. So after we meet, James is going to sort this out next week. We're going to have Terry Simmons and his team go down there and make the place look decent. You're not disagreeing with me so far, James, are you?
Wait, I don't want to interrupt you.
Okay. As long as you're not disagreeing, I will come to you, Val. This is what negotiations are all about. Learn from the Donald. When you've got the power of the vote, it makes people think. But in fairness to the Pride team, some members will be aware and some members will not. I was recently dropping off some letters about the secondary school issue at Westley Green estate, and there was weeds up to your chest. And so I thought, that's Red Row, isn't it? They've sold all the hams around here. I thought, why spray, why cut their own weeds? So I asked the planning department, which is chaired by Mo, I want a section 215 notice issued against Red Row, but it turned out the land belonged to the school because those ever smart people at Essex cannot put the right place for a boundary fence for a school. Can you believe it? And it was over 1.1 miles in length, 4 foot in depth. One of the governors said to me that we don't have petrol strimmers because it's a school and we can't keep petrol equipment for obvious reasons. Not that the kids might flick a cigarette in, it's probably a parent or maybe a teacher, who knows. And for a fire risk, you can't have it. So Terry Simmons, our Pride team coordinator, went down there. It was all trimmed nice, but he says what it needs is some topsoil and turf. So I've asked Terry to get a quote and possibly bring it back to the area committee to fund. Personally, I'd send the bill to Essex, but they just use it to wipe their ear ends with or whatever they do with letters from Basildon because they don't care. Now, James wanted to come in and agree with everything I said, I expect.
Of course, Chair. Thank you for inviting me along tonight to talk about this. I think that in previous meetings, myself and members of the team have been along to talk about the good work that the Pride teams are doing across the borough. And to me, this the funding request represents the next stage of that. Ultimately, if approved tonight, you will, as a committee, have the ability to be able to shape and direct the work that the Pride teams undertake in your area. That will be through the form of monthly conversations with the chair. So obviously, this doesn't impact your ability to raise councillor inquiries through the normal means, but it does mean that if there are particular hotspot areas, and I take your point, Chair, around Van Chill Drive, if Van Chill Drive is your priority, then I'd say next week we get a meeting in so you can meet formally, obviously subject to approval tonight, your neighbourhood supervisor, who is Terry, and he's brilliant and does know the area and has a brilliant team at his disposal. I think it's important that you meet him and discuss work programmes and priorities, and that Terry and myself and the team come back to future meetings to keep you updated on the things that you have asked the team to do, you are paying the team to do, but that closer connection between what our teams are doing on the ground and what is important for you as champions within your communities, and what's important to make lives better for your residents. That's what it's all about. So I imagine if approved tonight, you'll be sick of hearing about this, but I want the team to come back and present some of the photos, the befores, the afterwards. Here's what you said, here's what we've done, so you can take that back to your residents and show the difference that we're making on the ground to them. So thank you.
Because historically, because it's never been in Nevermain, only until the last year of the boundary changes, they've treated Van Chill Drive like Cold War Berlin. That bit's sanctuary, that bit's county, that little bit there's Basildon. Well, if you pay your council tax, you don't care if you're going through Checkpoint Charlotte, go to the post office. You've paid your council tax, it should all look clean, it should all look tidy. So that's why we're supporting this today, so the teams can get around there and get it all looking clean and tidy. No more of this Cold War Berlin. It ain't East, West, Russian, French sector. There's weeds growing, there's bushes growing, get it clean, get it cut. Right, because Essex County Council's going in the bin May 28, and I don't care which colour bin they put it in, because it's going. And this business with Sanctuary, they mean well, but Manana doesn't cut it with residents. It needs to be done pronto. Councillor Murphy.
Okay, first of all, if we ask or even pay towards James's team to go and do Van Chill side, and as you know, I'm very into keeping things clean and tidy that way. Why should we let Essex off? I mean, I don't know how much it will cost to do Van Chill side on their side or our side, but they're just saving the money. Should we not be pressurising more Essex to use the money that we give them to do the job? If we do it, they're going to say, oh, fine, they've done it, and wander off. I mean, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'd love to say, James, do it. If there was an unlimited pot here, we say, James, go and do it. How much is it? That's a weekend, you know, there's 700 quid for your men, off you go. But why, with all these things that we're not letting off Essex, several of the things James has done for me, I found out through that it was partly Essex. Now, whether Essex pay for it, whether we pay for it, I don't know. But when drain covers are missing, I want them mended because I don't want anybody falling down them. That's a matter of an emergency. An overgrown bush is not exactly an emergency. So how are we going to get, you being a member of Essex, how are we going to get the money out of them? Can we charge them for it? Can we say, if you haven't got the men, we'll do it, and give the money to James? Or has James, I know, has got some money in reserve from Essex that he's allowed to use?
The short answer is, just picture Basildon. It's like one of 12 children, the various district councils in Essex, and we're like an adult child, and we've got to paper around, do a bar job, and our parents are feckless. To go down the pub, go down the booking shop, that's Essex County Council. Basildon goes to work, it pays the tax, it generates the business rates, and they give nothing back. Absolutely nothing. And they used to have these two rangers. Eddie, you'd be like Mr. Muscle compared to them. You could do 100 times more work. When I first got onto Essex County Council, Sporham's in Lee Chapel South, where it meets Gainsford, there's an alleyway, and there was brambles poking out late summer, and the lady there said, could those brambles be cut because it's a narrow pavement? There was no pride teams then. We had the Essex Rangers. I got them down. The two guys in their 20s were busy chatting up the mums. And I was around there popping off around my newsletter. So I went, oh, excuse me guys, I'm the local councillor. You cutting those bushes? Oh, we're just there to look. We will be doing it. They never done it. The old dear phoned me back up a week later. I got a pair of shears and done it myself. You know Falcon Way, Councillor Murphy, in Kingswood? Yes, yeah. Yeah. So what is it, 30 foot being generous of length? You know those concrete post fencing with the gap in between? I asked for that to be pruned back that much. Just brambles, old vegetation, just untidy. So the Essex Rangers come out. How many days to cut 30 foot and a foot wide, if that? 3 days. And then they started presenting their job sheets to us. Me and Councillor Buckley went, what is the point of it? You'd do better going to an old people's home, finding someone who's like badly hurt by old age in a wheelchair and say, do you want to do their job? Because you could do twice as much. And Essex got rid of them. But in short, while the present administration has the power, they will look after Colchester, Chelmsford, Malden, Epping, Brentwood first, and we're the mugs paying for it. We are that teenage kid doing the poke round, picking up glasses to give to feckless parents who go down the pub and drink it all. And May 28, when we're free of Essex County Council, we will start looking better. I'm not saying it's like overnight, but over the 5 years, I believe, after we get unitary, we will look so much better. But when you go to those aforementioned authorities, they will start looking tattier and tattier and tattier, because it's our money making them look so good.
Councillor Smith, my point was that if they are late doing it, don't matter whether it's July, August, if it costs whatever, X amount, £10,000 a round figure. I'm sure it's not as much as that, but anyway. They're going to spend £10,000 doing it, even though it's a month, 6 weeks later. Obviously, to me, if they're not doing it now, and it's on a rota that should be done, they're either short of men, which is probably the truth, but they're not going to save the £10,000. So tell them, if they're short of men, we'll have the 10,000, we'll do it. Simple as that.
They have a contract. The Highways Department is run by, let's pronounce it correctly because I have a little slang name from Ringway Jacobs, and they run the Highway Department. So if they gave us that money, that's money from their shareholders, right? So if there's a complaint with vegetation on public highway, they don't care. Now they could charge the county, but it's Ringway Jacobs prices. And to put that into context, if you want one wooden post fitted by Ringway Jacobs on turf, £4,500, and a subsequent post are £1,000. I recently got an update on the installation request for traffic lights on Langdon Hills High Road. They had a feasibility study. They said they want another £40,000 from the local highways panel to design it. And I said, who's designing it, Versace or Gucci? You have 4 posts, 2 sets of buttons. What's there to design? Well, it's design cost because the Ringway Jacobs owns and runs the highway department. So the vegetation and public highway land, yeah, they'd do it for us if we paid. And that contract was renewed right at the start of the first lockdown. Stinks. Stinks to high heaven. Couldn't call it in, couldn't do nothing. They could have done, while the pandemic's on, we'll extend and then allow a proper review. But while people in North Essex keep voting Tory, we keep getting punished for it. But May 28, they won't exist. And what a great day. So I think we're finished on this item about the Pride teams. But in short, if we don't have it, our streets and roads are going to look disgusting. Yes, Councillor Murphy.
Right, obviously, I don't know how many Pride teams there are. How many Pride teams are there? 7, basically, 1 for each financial area, group area, yeah. And we'll be paying for 1. So basically, we have 1 all the time, as it were, on average. Bearing in mind, of course, that perhaps I shouldn't say this because we're up here, but Wickford has got a far greater geographical area, isn't it, to a certain degree.
I think the geographical area and the needs of the borough. So when we moved to a neighbourhood services model, we split along the 5 boundaries. So I've got 5 neighbourhood teams within that. Some of the Pride teams, some of the neighbourhood teams have different teams, but it's based on each area of the borough is slightly different in its need. So I think I think the best way to think about this is If you don't agree to fund it, you have access to half a Pride team, which will give you at a level of resource that can still deal with emergencies and some matters, but won't give you the ability to set the workload as we're talking about tonight. So essentially you're funding half of a Pride team to then top that up to get the access and the work setting as we've been discussing this evening.
You'd be glad to hear, James, I've got no intention of voting against it. I just wanted to know what the parameters were going to be. If we fund, you know, if I pay for half or something, I want my half, definitely. And I was just making sure that that was going to occur. I'm sure it was going in anyway. I'd just like to put it on record.
Before I go over to Councillor Robbins, let me just remind you, because you're still newish, a year and a bit on the council. For those 3 years in opposition, that Pride team, as good work as they are, seem to be super glued in Billericay. Really super glued. Now what you've got now is a system distributed across the borough, and with each area committee funding it. So if the Mrs Bouquet or the Billericay Doggers want our Pride team, no, they can pay for their own Pride team. They're not taking away a service. Everyone's getting treated fairly. Councillor Robbins.
Top of Langdon Hills, Stainway, and it goes into High Road. You've got that central reservation. It's all surrounded with weeds 3 foot high. The bollard's been on its side for God knows how long. It all needs cutting back. And the same weeds in the curbs all the way down Mandeville Way. Right, that needs seeing too. I noticed a few days ago that I think it's Thurrock have been in and cut the grass around a field in Dry Street, which is encroaching on the highway, which makes the rest of it that I've already spoken to you about look really bad. But Dry Street is getting, the highway is getting so overgrown, it's ridiculous. But that's just what it is. But I've got to put a request in to have the Pride team from the top of the High Road to the junction, the prior bit from Delmore's upwards on the left-hand side. That needs cutting back, but I'll put...
Okay, Councillor Robbins, if you do an email to council inquiries in the subject, just put Pride team and look up Terry Simmons and CC me in, they'll work that in. I think that's the fairest thing. But Councillor Robbins, as for that split grass being cut, once we're unitary, there'll be one council cutting that grass. And I mean, county gives, Essex County Council is giving Thurrock Council the money to maintain Westley Heights. Why I do not know, after watching that solar farm okey bokey. And then Thurrock Council do their calculations. Well, with unitary, all that money will be in our remit and it'll look great, look really good.
Okay, but the main thing we need doing is the bollards.
That's been reported to Essex County Council, but again, it's Ringway Jacobs. That could be a year, because what they're doing with bollards, when they are broken, they're due to be replaced. They're putting in plastic rubbish bendy things, because Ringway Jacobs earns more money with them being replaced every year, where a lorry's whacked it.
Yeah, but the problem is, on that corner of the junction of the High Road, where you turn right to go onto the High Road again, when the buses come round there, they just knock it straight over again. That junction is so small, it's ridiculous.
Well, as Citizen Smith said, come the revolution, we'll make Basildon great again. Councillor Larkin.
Quick one. I do have a problem with the name, the Pride team, because someone said to me, well, what do they do then, put rainbow flags up? I said, no, they clean up in the area. Why are you calling them the Pride team? I said, it's something we've inherited. And why not, don't we call them the Tidy Up team, so everybody can understand what we mean? We tidy up. And I think they're good.
When someone said a similar question to me, I said, well, lions are like a pride. And I said to them about them useless rangers. Our guys are like lions compared to those useless rangers, yeah? they're more like a dopey stray cat that only comes in for food, does something, you know, on the best rug and zips off for the day till it's hungry again, domestic strangers. But no, I think of them as lions compared to them, so I'd stick by the name. But the person who came up with the name was Councillor Kevin Blake all those years ago. So you may wish to direct that question there. Right, we'll put the item to the vote because we're going to have the Pride team round the van shield drive rather sharpish, aren't we? Aren't we, James?
Tomorrow morning,
Right, those in favour? Right, that's unanimous. Right, item 2. The fund, it's the funds, £3,000 for 2 crunches. Now, all we have is a promise, because at the last meeting, we funded an Evermain crunch, and Langdon Hills needed a crunch. And we said at that meeting that a venue has to be found in Langdon Hills, because there were questions raised about the suitability of the Nares and the one at the Triangle. Earlier this week I met with James, and James has tried really hard. An officer suggested somewhere in the Billericay constituency. Well, that's not Langdon Hills. Not Langdon Hills. And it's for the Saturday week. Now, there's some people in the council who think people look on Facebook. No, they don't. There's a handful of people who don't have a life, or it's like drama on their phone, if you like, EastEnders. But for most normal people, they use Facebook to interact with their friends and family and keep up to date. So we like to publish a letter, print it ourselves, we put it through the doors. Now, we've got record temperatures, which are lovely. Now, you start telling us possibly as late as Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday next week. How am I going to get 6,000 leaflets out, let alone printed, folded, and through the doors for people to have the time to go down to the crunch this Saturday week with their gear? So we made our views clear at the last meeting, had to be Langdon Hills. And tonight, before the meeting, James, and I don't wish to criticise, we don't have a firm concrete venue where this will happen. You know, I was really keen that we had a venue tonight so I could get something printed and out this weekend through the 6,000 doors of Langdon Hills. Because why would we want to pay and fund a crunch that no one's heard of, right? What's the point?
Thank you, Councillor. So appreciate your concerns. I do obviously want to make sure we find a site that is operationally suitable but is also safe for our staff and members of the public to access and use. Upon the reintroduction of the crunch last year, we ran a number of sites. Some of those were historic, but the world had moved on. We can't just have, what we used to do is just put a refuse vehicle in a car park or in a residential area, and it would be much easier to put everything in the back of one vehicle and drive that off. Legally now we're not allowed to do that. We have to keep certain materials separate, which means we have to run more vehicles, which means we need more space. That then takes up, we have to think about traffic management. The sites are very popular, so we have to run something that is safe for our staff to operate, safe for members of the public to get in and get out of as well, and safe for them to manoeuvre things from typically their boots into the vehicles as well. So appreciate your feedback. We will continue to work with you to try and find somewhere suitable, but it has to be somewhere that's operationally suitable and safe for the site to take place. Thank you.
Members, we don't have a site for Langdon Hills. So I propose we amend this for £1,500. So the officers have got till the autumn to find a site in Langdon Hills, because I'm not subsidising sites in the Billericay constituency. They've had enough out of Nevermain and Langdon Hills, enough. They're due some money to us. So if we can't have one in Langdon Hills, in a timely fashion to let residents know, because people are not psychic, very few people watch these council meetings online. Some people have a look on Facebook, but the whole point of this is that everybody knows, and we make them aware at no expense of the taxpayer. So, Councillor Brown, are you seconding my amendment?
Yes.
So we're reducing it to 1,500, so we won't be having a crunch this Saturday week because we can't get 6,000 leaflets printed, folded and through the doors when we get given a venue as late as Wednesday, Thursday next week. It's impossible. So So we'll put the amendment to the vote for 1,500. So we're not funding a crunch Saturday week, but this 1,500 will be for a crunch in the autumn. Because I'm not funding a crunch outside of our walls, let alone in the Billericay parliamentary constituency. We're having a vote, Councillor Murphy.
Oh, no, I was just going to add to it.
Okay. Right, those in favour of the amendment? Right, that's passed. Before we vote on the substantive, Councillor Murphy?
I was just going to add to it. Do we note and keep 1,500 in reserve on our expenditure when a suitable site and if a suitable site is found?
Well, they're only operating up to 5 crunchies this municipal year, so at best we'll have 4 crunchies. And that £1,500 will go back in the kitty. So we could spend it on something else, but I'm not helping giving Billericay even a snotty nose handkerchief for myself. They've had their fill, they are our constituents. Those in favour of the amended item 2, that a £1,500 investment for delivery of one crunch service in the Westley Heights area from the blah blah blah, and that is to be delivered in the autumn, not this Saturday week, in case someone thinks, oh, well, they've still agreed 1,500 quid, we'll stick that on some corner because we found a nice safe site there. Or Lake Meadows, they've had their fill. Those in favour? Unanimous. We're here to stick up for our constituents, and if they can't have, then they can't have. Someone else ain't nicking our 1,500 quid. So a resident has approached me about item 3. There isn't anything really to discuss. It's to purchase a tree that was damaged and died. Those in favour of item 3? Fine. Item 4, a gentleman approached me for £457 for 2 lockable bollards in those locations there. The Langdon Hills one was to stop car criminals and also deter travellers, because the one county had in there keep broken.
Where's that?
You know, when you're driving along Mandeville way from Tesco's, you see three or four red coloured posts on the right hand side, and then there's a gap.
Yeah.
There wasn't Ringway Jacobs special lockable bollard, yeah? I was going to say ringworm. That's about all they are when you look at the state of our roads. Mickey Mouse lamp bollards that probably cost more than the Cartier watch to install, but probably cost them tuppence halfpenny on eBay to buy. So we're going to put something proper there to keep the residents safe, and it's a deterrent because Great Berry Park a few years ago was swamped with travellers, and that was a battle to clear them. So for me, that's a no-brainer item 4. Nothing to add, because I'll put this to the vote. Those in favour? Unanimous. Item 5, this is something we shouldn't have to spend £500 on, but while we're still stuck with Essex County Council and the Snowflake Parking Partnership, all they want to do is go around quiet, posh areas, target commuter vehicles, stick tickets on them and disappear. We're having to spend this £500 to stop antisocial parking because the Snowflake Parking Partnership don't employ real traffic wardens. So, is anyone anything to add? Because we'll put this one straight to the vote. Those in favour? Thank you.
Just looking at the tree, sorry Kerry, a liquid amber, whatever you would call it, we're just looking at.
Councillor Green, when you saw liquid amber, it weren't Foster's.
No, I think it was something else, yeah. Okay, sorry about that.
Square.
That's all right, wait, yeah. Sorry about that.
If we could have a beer tree, we'd be very popular electors if we spent our annual budget on that.
That's all right.
You don't want anyone felling it.
Quite right, Councillor Harkin. We don't want anyone filling a fictional beer tree. Item 6, again, this is something we have to do to agree to fund these wooden posts because of the Snowflake Parking Partnership. They've got problems with people antisocially parking on the greens, who live in the flats along Cherry Down. They come round there, the Snowflake Parking Partnership, but refuse to patrol of an evening, refuse to do their jobs. So we're doing this to protect the greens in this area of resident support. So those in favour of item 6? Unanimous. Sorry, Councillor Murphy, you wanted to say something? Use the mic.
You said, you didn't say Wychard, you said somewhere else.
Which ours is only half done.
Yeah, I know, but you didn't actually say Wychard.
No, Cherrydown, the commuters
Cherrydown.
commuters from Cherrydown.
Oh, you said commuters from Cherrydown, you just said Cherrydown.
Yeah.
That's,
And
what
of an
confused,
evening-
that's what confused me.
And
Yeah,
of-
Wychard, yeah.
And of an evening, you get a few visitors that pop along there. I understand their problem, but Wychard's was built for a certain car capacity, and it wasn't built for people in the flats to take the biscuit and park their car on the green. So, anyway, but once we're unitary, we will deal with that problem. We will hire real traffic wardens, and when the Snowflake Parking Partnership come here and say, can we have a job? So I think you're better off working in a nursery. You might be able to deal with toddlers, because you certainly ain't able to deal with cars parked illegally. The next one, to chase this one up, these are the things which us councillors get lobbied quite heavily about. Someone mistakenly removed 2 dog bins from the little parking patrols, and myself and the members for Langdon Hills have been chased up by residents saying we need those 2 dog bins, blah blah blah. And if you really want to be on my Christmas card list, make sure you vote for this. Those in favour? Good. You're all on my Christmas card list. Right, what else have we got on here? Right, so the Langdon Hills Estate Residents Association, we gave them £5,000 winter relief funding. They had a surplus of £1,893.21, which officers have all seen and accounted for. It all pretty much makes sense. Those in favour of item 8? Councillor Murphy? You should read your agendas a week before the meeting's published. Good. Yeah. So we've got no more voting on. We've got no more voting to do on this tonight, Chloe, have we? Right, there is one bit of housework we need to do, Chloe. I didn't like to interrupt the nice people from Morgan Sindall, but they said they were supporting the charity Changing Pathways in their thing. Councillor Larkin, do you want to make a little declaration? Because I think your Golf Day charity supported Changing Pathways. Do you want to use the mic just to formally declare it? Just declaring an interest, even though you've given them money.
Oh, it seems ridiculous, but yes, I declare an interest.
I also bet declare that we gave them all the teddy bears as well.
Remind me, was those, because I said to Councillor Brown, were they those sort of funky colour ones?
Yeah.
What was their colours again? I said to Councillor Brown they had
They are
a luminous yellow with green eyes or something.
No, I don't know about that. All I know is they're therapy bears. It's the best colour for children who
TLC, tender loving care.
who are in distress. I have arranged for them to get a permanent supply of them hereafter from the TLC, which is a Masonic charity.
Very good, Councillor Murphy. I do recall when I saw those lovely bears, in fact, thanks to supporting them, I said to Councillor Brown, I think those bears have ate the food at Basildon Hospital. Might explain their leery green colour, but the kids are like them. Make them happy.
As a continuation of that, the Masonic charity gives away around about £40,000 worth a year to all the hospitals in Essex. They are continually supplied whenever they want. And by somewhere in the region of February and March, the Freemasons in Essex started the charity. It's now spread throughout the whole of England, the whole of Wales, 3 counties of Scotland, the whole of Ireland, Malta and several other countries to whatever degree. And in February, March next year, we should get to our 4 millionth teddy.
Very good, very good. So is there anything you members would like to be looked at into for the next area committee? Because there's some things I've asked to be looked at. The car park at the Memorial Church in Dry Street is not very good. So I spoke to the church people who maintain that church there. Can something be done there? What other things I've asked for the consideration? Because I just put them in. Have you got anything you want to put forward for consideration? Yes, Councillor Murphy.
I don't know whether this comes under James's auspices again, when his teams are going round. All the old boxes that we use for the post people, pouch boxes. I mean, a lot of them are in terrible repair. Some of them are falling off, but most of them are just horrible and rusty. Do we get hold of the post office and tell them to come remove them because they're becoming a health and safety issue, or do we just remove them as we go past, kick them over and take them away?
I'm not sure, Councillor, because I think that so they've probably got permission to be there, haven't they? So I think it's probably worth, get me a couple of pictures and I'm happy to write to the post office and ask for some clarification from them on what they intend to do with them, particularly if they're rusting and causing a bit of an eyesore.
Well, I think the legal. What happened was that didn't the law change that you're only allowed to carry 25 kilos? So I think what happened was they put those boxes everywhere, so that the men could put their bags on, so they weren't carrying more than 25 kilos. But of course, with the drop of mail, they don't take out any letters to drop these days because there's just no. So I don't suppose they've got 25 kilo to start off with.
We're going slightly off subject there, but I can answer your question because there's one in Mulberry Gardens and there's another bad one in Collingwood Road. And Royal Mail standard reply is, we've got a 5-year rolling circle. But I think in truth, if there's metal thieves, want to knock them over, rip them out and get the steel and do something naughty, they will. But that's that. One question while I've got James here. The fly posting you see, so for example, you know the Tesco's in Langdon Hills, for example, or if you're coming up the Nevermain near the speed camera, there's that big sort of tarpaulin thing attached to gates. Was it Fatness First or whatever, yeah? Something like that. Which is clearly fly posting. Is there anything we can do as a council to tackle it? Because it just makes it look tatty. Because that one at Tesco's Langdon Hills, there's this blue hoarding for this site, which is owned by a private landowner. Some of the advertising's got like advertising wacky backy deliveries and things like that, and you think. And equally on that point, you're seeing these wacky backy stickers. I didn't know what they were. I thought it was something to do with wacky backy because it's got a wacky backy leaf on it. And there was a piece on BBC London News a few weeks ago. So people just get their phone, scan it, and it takes them straight to a website. They can order whatever illegal drugs they want, and it's dropped off like Amazon. So I know the lampposts are not necessarily all ours, but it is fly posting. What can we do as a council to get this illegal fly posting removed?
Thank you, Councillor. So fly posting is, I think it's worth picking up that we are due to be looking at the council's corporate enforcement policy. That will form part of that. So I think it's important that when that review happens through normal scrutiny functions, that those matters are raised. We do have some powers under the TCPA, the Town and Country Planning Act. There's some things under the Cleaner Neighbourhoods and Environment Act. There's various powers we can use, but it depends on A, resourcing, B, the land and where the fly posting's put as well. Some things are permitted, but they have to get permission from us to do it. Some are permitted as long as they're taken down after the event, things like circuses. So it really depends on a case-by-case basis. So my teams tend to remove where legally appropriate. Obviously, things that are stuck on lampposts, there's no way that that's ever going to be made legal. And in other cases, we have written to people and given them cease and desist notices. But it is down to resourcing to manage that. So it has to be done on a case by case basis. There's no one size fits all approach for it. But the best way to resource that and approach that would be to look at the way we do it corporately. But there are a few powers at our disposal to manage fly posting.
Because the only people I know where you've got any power over are political parties. Because you have that imprint on the bottom, and if someone's fly posting, you go, oh, Councillor Harkin's the election agent. You get the bill for the removal of the posters. But all this other fly posting, who do you send the bill to? That's the question. So If one of your people can have a look at that Mandeville Way Tesco's, at least get the druggy posters down. 'Cause it's not a good advertisement for Basildon, is it? Right, then I'd like to thank everyone for their attendance. And they've got a few months to find us a site in Langdon Hills for a crunch. Very good.
Recommendations,
Right. Good. Have a safe